Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to our press conference today. The Elk Grove Police Department is proud and excited to announce a partnership with Nextdoor, which is a private social media-based community group that allows the Elk Grove Police Department and other public agencies to work with communities that have already been established to promote safety and direct dialogue with those residents. Right now I do have Chief Robert Lehner, who will be speaking about the partnership, and I'll turn it over to Chief. Chief.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is an important day for us. What I want to do first, before we drill into a little bit about what Nextdoor is and why it's important, is provide just a little bit of background. How do we get here? And it dates back to middle year last year when the mayor and city council of the city of Elk Grove wanted to take a look at what we do in support of neighborhoods. We've done a number of neighborhood summits that worked out real well, and basically asked the question, how can we take that to a higher and better level? What we decided, or what the council decided at that meeting, was to build on our existing Neighborhood Watch program. What that did, more importantly, is we kind of centered the growth of the neighborhood programs out of the police department. And the reason it did that is because we were already organized in a neighborhood watch way, and it was just a matter of building on that rather than starting all over. So then very recently at a council retreat, and Mayor Davis is here, I'll talk about that briefly, is that was adopted as a strategy of the council for the city going forward in terms of neighborhood strengthening and engagement and how we do that. And so what we're doing today is basically announcing the outcomes of all of those higher level strategies and planning sessions to explain how we go from being the neighborhood groups that we are presently to the very much larger, more organized, and better supported neighborhood groups of the future. So with that, I want to introduce Mayor Gary Davis and have him make a few comments, and then I'll come back. Mayor.
Thanks, Chief Lehner, and the police department for their leadership in launching this initiative. You know, the city of Elk Grove is 15 years old, and when we incorporated 15 years ago, we had approximately 60,000 residents. Today, we have over 160,000 residents. So that's an increase of 100,000 people in really less than 15 years period of time. In 2005 and 6, we were the fastest growing city in the country. You take that growth, and in fact, most of that's coming in new subdivisions, and you couple that with sort of people's trends of being leading busy lifestyles, right? They pull out of their garage, they enjoy time with their family, they pull out and they go to work, and then they do it all over again. And so if you look around communities that haven't actively and proactively attempted to build strong neighborhoods are really struggling right now. And so in a lot of ways, we've really been working hard to dig in at the neighborhood level. We're grateful that we have neighborhood leaders that are really focused on building strong neighborhoods. A couple of them are here today and have used Nextdoor, and so I'm excited because they'll be available to the media to answer questions later, and I hope you will ask them. But building a strong neighborhood takes proactive, deep engagement to accomplish it. You sort of know it when you see it. There's a lot of intangibles in there, but things like the National Night Out, 4th of July, block parties, neighborhood watch, those are all things that help kind of sort of weave this fabric together that makes the neighborhood strong. Collectively for our city, if we're going to be a strong and safe city, we need to have strong and safe neighborhoods. And the growth is happening again. So you look, there's new subdivisions being built still, and you're seeing the same thing happen. So City of Elk Grove is going to be growing for some time. And we have active neighborhood leaders in a lot of communities. In some places we don't. So what we're doing is we're essentially reaching out to where people are, meeting people where they are, their interests. They're busy, they're leading busy lifestyles, they're on Facebook and Twitter probably half the day anyway, so why not make it easier for them to connect to the neighbors on social media. So that's why I'm excited about this partnership with Nextdoor.com, because we're going to meet people where they are, we're going to provide tools. The chief will get into some of the details of exactly what it does, but I hope that it's, the Elk Grove Police Department has launched a number of initiatives that have really drilled down into our neighborhoods, whether it be just our community policing strategies or our VIP program, where we have folks that volunteer their time to patrol neighborhoods and then provide feedback back to the police department, or just the fact that we work so hard to attract and keep the best talent in our police department. Just ask the officers; they'll tell you they're the best, and they truly are. So I'm excited about taking this partnership to the next level. Nextdoor.com is a valuable tool, but the City of Elk Grove's goal is that we have strong neighborhoods in every single part of our community. And in order to do that, they've got to be organized, they've got to be connected, they've got to be talking to each other. We want to make sure that happens in existing neighborhoods and in the neighborhoods. So thank you, excited about this. Thank you, Chief, for your leadership, and I'm looking forward to what comes of this.
Okay, so you heard that basically we have a number of neighborhood watch groups that are variously organized, and some of the rest of the city isn't. In terms of count, we have well over 200 neighborhood watch groups. They typically exist block by block, but you can probably sense that trying to grow that program, especially if we had to interact with 300 or 400 neighborhood groups, probably wouldn't work very well at any level, let alone a communication level, especially since we previously had only one crime prevention specialist assigned. We now have two. Our crime prevention crew is here in the back of the room, by the way, in case you're curious about meeting them at some point. Taking off on the City Council's initiative then, what we needed to do is grow our neighborhood program from the existing neighborhood watch group into the entire city, including those places that don't have neighborhood groups, and somehow get from there to where we want to go. So it was probably 2 years ago, I think, I got an invitation from one of the neighborhood leaders right here, Michael Jones from Laguna Greens, who via an email that came from a program called Nextdoor that I'd never heard of, invited me to, I guess it's part of a friend relationship to the neighborhood, so I could get neighborhood bulletins, etc., and things like that. Knowing Michael and the great work done at Laguna Greens, I went, sure, I accepted the invitation, and then periodically for a period of time I'd get these updates from Michael's neighborhood. But I never really drilled into it, and I never really knew what else was going on until late last year we had all of those mailbox break-ins, and then I got a barrage from Sharon in Camden, who's also here today, thank you very much, and then I saw some of the exchange of information that was happening, including information that was shared with us at the police department, that ultimately played a role in our being able to identify those mail thieves and ultimately working with the U.S. Postal Inspector, making an arrest in that case. That combined with the request from the council caused us to take a closer look at Nextdoor. And it turns out that it has been in existence for a couple of years. It's mostly grassroots, but it's a social media site that is really designed for neighborhoods. You don't get to get on there with an assumed name. You have to use your real address, although you can block your address number. You can't block your address name. And you have to be verified. So if somebody who just wants to advertise for no reason wants to land on one of these sites, they can't, because you have to be verified by one of the leaders of the identified neighborhood. So it's private in that sense. It's public in the sense that it is designed around certain neighborhood boundaries. And as we learn more about it and learn that some police departments around the country are starting to use that as a means of communicating with neighborhood groups, we talked with Nextdoor and engaged in the partnership with Nextdoor to take our policing of neighborhoods and our communication with neighborhoods to that next level. Community policing, we've all heard about it. We all, most of us do it, and we certainly do it in Elk Grove. Community policing is variously defined around forming partnerships with members and groups in the community for the purpose of addressing crime, other quality of life issues, and improving the quality of life of a community overall. The City of Elk Grove Police Department is embarking on a twist of that we're calling neighborhood-based community policing. What that means is that same partnership exists for that same purpose of reducing problems of crime and other quality of life issues in a neighborhood, but that primary partnership is going to be with neighborhood groups. So So Nextdoor represents an ideal tool to kick that off. Now for us, it's relatively new. Over 3,000 Elk Grove residents signed up for Nextdoor all on their own without anybody really knowing about it, and started to form these groups and were communicating with each other. So it was already a grassroots effort and fairly successful. After today, I have a prediction that that's going to explode. Eventually what will happen is all of the various neighborhood groups in the city of Elk Grove will have come together in one way or another on Nextdoor, and then we'll be able to get the neighborhood leaders together and figure out what's the best way of kind of crafting the boundaries, which right now just happen when you sign up for an area that isn't already a part of Nextdoor. We want it to grow organically and naturally, and then as the neighborhood leaders emerge, we'll all get together to figure out what the very best way is of crafting that going forward. Now for us, Elk Grove PD, it represents an excellent opportunity for us to push those messages out about what the risks are in certain areas or the city as a whole, tips associated with that, and that then involves us in the conversation when one of the neighbors sends us a message about, oh, by the way, we've had a suspicious so-and-so hanging around driving this kind of car. So that kind of exchange we get. To the neighbors themselves, though, it's even more valuable. They can share information with, I lost my cat. I gotta have a roof done. Does anybody in the neighborhood have any experience with a good roofer, plumber, etc.? And those aren't advertising. Those are word of mouth things passed along amongst the neighbors that they may or may not find valuable, that they can participate or not, depending on how valuable they find it. But over 3,000 Elk Grove residents are already signed up for that. So with that, what we hope to get to eventually is a place where the entire city and all its residents are part of neighborhoods that are defined and that can communicate with each other using Nextdoor. Because as the mayor said, we're all really, really busy people. And on top of that, we don't communicate as a society quite the same way we used to. Some of us still gather together and talk over a fence, but a lot of times, well, I'll talk with my own kids. It took a little getting used to. They're not children anymore, they're young adults. But I can't tell you how many times early on when they're in high school, we're sitting there and they're sitting right next to me. And I get a text from them about something. You know, thank goodness we're talking, right? I think that qualifies as talking. But you know, what I've discovered as they grew and then moved out of the house is that communication and that social networking method of communication is a critically important element even to communication as a family. And a neighborhood is, if nothing, an extension of family. A neighborhood today is today's equivalent of the clan or the tribe of yesterday. It's a very natural, comfortable feeling for how we live and work together to achieve common goals. That said, we don't communicate the same way we did back, 50, 60,000 years ago when we were all running around in clans. So we hope that Nextdoor, which is the only media site of its type focused on neighborhoods available at the moment, we hope to grow that in a way that will really bootstrap, start up, make better our overall community policing program here in Elk Grove, and will better our neighborhoods here in Elk Grove and the communication between us, between the city, the neighborhoods, and each other. So with that, I think we're ready to do something, and then we're going to take questions and answers, right?
Yes. We actually have on the screen here a display that shows the current status of the Nextdoor partnership. As the chief mentioned, we actually have a little over 3,400 verified users who have signed up for Nextdoor without any assistance from the police department or any type of push from us. As you can see by looking at the map, the neighborhoods are self-defined. So if I live in one particular area of Elk Grove, I may define something like Michael or Sharon, two of our residents here, that specifically affects the area that I live in. A good example would be Camden or Laguna Woods. Those are our two most populous areas, I believe, and they are self-defined. As I click on the map, you'll see our service areas. From the police department standpoint, we have 5 beats within the city of Elk Grove. So when we send out from the police department messages, these messages will go to those service areas that we have defined based on the GIS information that our city folks have sent over to Nextdoor. So we have the ability to assign a message to a specific service area, and we also have the ability to assign our crime prevention officers to a specific area as well. As this program develops and organically starts to grow, we're hopeful that we'll be able to utilize additional personnel, much like some of our larger cities in the region that are currently using Nextdoor, to utilize line personnel to possibly engage with the community as well. So there's a lot of options available for us to use Nextdoor, but the big message is we're able to get messages to specific areas, whether they're events like the running of the elk that just happened on Sunday, where we have to do large street closures, or a public safety message, as the chief mentioned, with mail thefts. So we have the ability to target those messages into specific service areas. Chief?
Okay, thank you. That's all we have in the way of formal presentations. I know there are probably some people that have some questions, and actually the neighborhood leaders, if you're available and some of those questions are better answered from your perspective, we'd like to invite you to answer them as well as ask questions if you're so inclined. So anybody want to begin the Q&A?
So is this coming at a cost to the city, or is this just a free sign up that you're trying to get everyone to just join up for free and get everyone connected together?
There's no hard cost to the city. Obviously, we've got some people involved in rolling it out, but those are duties to which they are assigned anyway. So I won't say there's no cost per se, but it isn't an added or hard cost. It's already part of what we do. If you think about it, we hope eventually that it'll actually make us more efficient and effective at communications. So you could call it cost savings. There is no cost to a resident or a neighborhood to join Nextdoor.
So how does Nextdoor, they're not a nonprofit, I assume, they're a business, how do they make their money then?
Do you know the answer to that? I don't.
I don't, actually. They are private. They are funded by venture capitalists. So I'm sure in the private sector they are financed, but there are no specific ads generated. A lot of times you go to a website, Facebook does promoting of ads. There are no ads on Nextdoor.com, and Michael and Sharon both use the site frequently, and they can actually speak to any, I don't know if you've ever received junk mail or anything like that. So it is very secure as far as the information that is contained within their organization, within Nextdoor's organization.
How soon can residents sign up? Like now?
Yeah, you got a mobile phone, you can do it right now.
And there is an app too. So if you have an iPhone or an Android-based device, tablet, you can go onto the Apple Store or onto the Google Play Store. You can download it, you can register your information, and you can actually control the ability to get and receive information. So if you want to know everything that's going on in your neighborhood, you can click on a tab that gives you every post that's submitted. If you don't want to know everything, you have that option of backing out. So you have the ability to control how much or how little information you receive once you sign up. Sharon?
How do the numbers compare with those who are already signed up for the city's blasts of information? You know how the EGPD has its own sign up to receive information blasts like that. Do you know the comparison?
I don't know. Kristen is in the room, but that's something we could look into. This is for us, from the police department standpoint, this is a great way to do direct marketing, getting information directly to the residents. A lot of the times we're not able through traditional media to get information out. This works as a more direct way of getting that information specific to an area out quickly. Pamela, did you have a question?
Yes. Well, I think your main goal is to avoid crime, to increase in the city of Elk Grove. Can you talk about, perhaps in last years and the previous years, how this crime has been low, or what is the percentage of homicides compared to other cities, surrounding cities like Sacramento? What is this place
Okay, I think everyone heard that, so I don't feel like I have to repeat it, but,
Can you talk about numbers?
yeah, I'm gonna talk about numbers in terms of, I'm gonna talk about relative numbers. For the exact numbers, my brain doesn't do math real well, and I'd have to go and actually pull the reports, but here's how it works. As the mayor said, we're a relatively new city. What that means is the crime statistics for Elk Grove were not even kept until 2006, and that was only a partial year, because that was the year the police department started reporting crime statistics that compare with everybody else's crime statistics the way they're ranked and looked at nationally and in the state. 2007 was the first year that we had full year statistics. Until 2014, every single year, the overall crime per population, that crime rate that we talk about, went down. Not real significantly, but it went down every single year for every one of those years. And from 2007 to 2013, that represents a very substantial overall reduction in crime, in the range of 20 to 30% or so. One of the things that you can use crime statistics for comparison purposes that you can do is look at cities of your size and type around the country and then compare them over time. It's really important to do that with a lot of cities and over time, because to snapshot any particular point is really not very useful. It doesn't give you any comparison. It doesn't tell you where you are or where you're going. So we've done that, and in the case of crime overall, let's use that first and then I'll break it down into violent and property. If you look at the cities in the United States between 100 and 250,000 population, that's an FBI group, by the way. I didn't just make that up. We just happen to be well right in the middle of that group in terms of our percentage. So if you break that 150 cities into fifths, you get a middle group that let's call average. Then you get another group just above that, above now being better, okay? Call that above or better than average. And then you get another fifth that's very much above or better than average. Likewise, at the other side, you get below average and a very much below average in that category as well. For cities of our size and type in the United States, we have been consistently in either the very much below, very much above as a very much better category of cities of our size and type, or sometimes a fringe of better than average in the case of violent crime. But in both cases, our crime rates, violent and property, are either solidly in that best category or very near to it, to the point where as we're establishing our goals for how we want to compare crime types going forward as a city, we're saying we want to be in that very much better than average category. And our crime prevention efforts and our interdiction efforts are going to be directed at that. Here's why we use that comparison rather than numbers. Do y'all remember when the movie Gone in 60 Seconds came out? It was a movie about stealing cars. Guess what happened to the auto theft rate in the United States right after that movie came out? Bam, right? Now, what control could we possibly have had as a police department to that? Yet, what we could have done, and I don't think we were a city yet. What we did where I was working is we put out a lot of messages saying, hey, the risk is greater. Use our method of communication to let people know, hey, this is really a emerging crime right now. And what we were able to do is reduce the increase, if you could use those two words together, so that our experience was not as serious as some other places. In recent years, we did the same thing in gang-related crime. We have gang-related crime in Elk Grove, but you know what? Not a lot. And the reason for that is the priority given by the city council to us to address gang-related issues. As a result, our homicide rate, by the way, we were the second largest city in the United States in 2013 to not have a homicide. And it was only by that much. Now, homicides are, they're bad things. If you're the one victim or that one victim's family to bring this in. This is an addition. And the best example of that is the experience in Camden. It started in Camden, it spread all over the city. While I think we probably could have put a damper on that crime, knowing about it over time, we knew about it, but we didn't know the extent, all right? And the other thing we didn't know was the extent to which neighbors were working with each other to alert each other what hazards were, who the suspicious people were that they were seeing in the neighborhood, sharing that with each other. Ultimately, one of those people caught one of those crimes on their personal security cameras. That was shared with us. Through that and our own investigative efforts, we were able to not only identify who was responsible, but make an arrest. And ultimately, especially in property crimes, making an arrest out of a case like that is really important to reduce the future offenses. Now, we still have some mail thefts, but you know what? They're way less than they were when this whole thing started. That's hard.
Just last one. Have you guys learned from SACPD? I know that they have next door. And is that how you guys got word of this, or?
As the chief mentioned, it's something that's been on our radar for about 2 years. Before any agency enters into some partnership with an organization, especially a private organization, we have to do our due diligence and make sure that that fits the needs of this agency. And we've done that, and as the chief has mentioned, this is something that once you really dig into it, it really suits our agency. Everything that we're about, community policing, about getting officers, staff into meetings with the neighborhoods, getting active neighborhood groups already out there. It works with the mayor's vision and plan and city council's plan as well. So it's definitely something that I myself have been speaking with SACPD, the sheriff's department, about how they utilize it. And every agency does things differently, as you guys know. So I think we're going to take the best patterns, best practice from those agencies and put our Elk Grove spin on it to make it our own. But one other thing to point out, we as an agency do not have access to any information that is not shared with us, so it is completely private. We don't see posts about lost cats. We don't see garage sale posts. The only type of dialogue that we have as an agency is information that is sent from us directly to a service area. The recipients can then reply to us, or they can send us a direct message. That is the only way that we have interactions as an agency with the residents who are partaking in using Nextdoor. So it keeps their dynamics in play, it keeps our dynamics in play, and eventually works to come together and form a great partnership. So we're very thankful that everyone showed up today. We do have 2 members of the community, Michael Jones and Sharon, who are very much experts in the Nextdoor, if you'd like some comments from them. We also have members of our crime prevention team, our POP unit in the back room as well, along with their supervisor, Lieutenant Joe Young. So if anybody might have some follow-up questions, or the chief or the mayor, let me know. But I think if there are no further questions, Michael?
I just have a comment. I have the app for this tool Nextdoor, and as a lead, I have about 40 neighbors in my area called Elliott Ranch. That's our neighborhood. It's on the corner between Elk Grove Boulevard and Franklin Boulevard, going up to Laguna Boulevard. So in that area is called Elliott Ranch. And my neighborhood watch is called Laguna Greens Neighborhood Watch. So through this, you can send a postcard. They'll send a postcard to the neighbor once you identify to join the area. And that's how I get a lot of the neighbors at the company next door. If I identify this house, because there's a map within it that you can identify your neighbors that are either involved with Nextdoor, have not joined, or you sent out a card for them. So there's like 3 ways you can get them to be active. And a lot of times the neighbors will get the postcard and say, well, where's Elliott Ranch? They don't know that's the name of the area they live in. So I have to be descriptive on when I send out that information that is Laguna Greens Neighborhood Watch. So they say, oh, okay. So they get kind of confused. But it is an excellent tool because I look at a lot of things. I post on it myself personally. I do my newsletter to let people know that this is our annual quarterly newsletter that goes out for a neighborhood watch. I do meetings. We just had a meeting with the POP officer, Drew, and his staff this past Saturday. I have alerts when they have the mailbox stuff. I put out that alert to people to be aware of mailbox. And I think Kendall, I'm not sure if you're, are you a lead?
One could say that. I'm not
Okay.
specifically a lead, but I'm the president of the Camden Neighborhood.
Okay, so on here, so when you post, you have categories that they say, okay, what does this category relate to? So it could be crime and safety, documents, free items, general, lost and found recommendations. So a lot of my neighbors that, young kids, they say, well, does anybody want to do babysitting? She has babysit dogs and cats. So she'll post something on there like that. And there's a lot of information. It's a very valuable tool, just to alert right away if something's going on. I can pick it up from over here in this area because I'm a lead and I'm connected to the other leads over here in this area. So there's, out of my 40, and I have leads that have maybe 30 in this area, 50 in this area. So you can post it to everybody around there if there's a certain issue happening in your area. So it's a valuable tool. I just want to let you know it's easy to access and it's free. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, thank you very much for coming. Those individuals are available for questions if